Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso@the1916company.com. It is in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Reach out to tmosso@the1916company.com for pricing. In 2011, Vacheron Constantin launched this, the Traditionnelle worldtime. No normal worldtime watch. It takes advantage of the fact that Vacheron can charge a little bit more money to give you a more sophisticated world timer than a mass market brand. As a result, we have 37 distinct time zones acknowledging that the world is not broken up into 24 identically spaced slots. So, how does it work? Well, fit is fundamental, so fit comes first. In white gold, it's a large dress watch at 42.5 millimeters, 11.9 millimeters thick, but from lug to lug, 49.1 millimeters with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, it's large. I would say that I have the smallest wrist that can wear this watch. It fits, and you can see down the barrel that the lugs are inboard the edge of my wrist. It's not thick either, as being sub 12 millimeters, it will fit pretty easily underneath the cuff, but it's broad, and you can see over the top that these lugs are pushing out to the edge of my wrist. So I'm going to recommend to wear this watch. You've got a wrist of my size, 16 centimeters circumference or larger. The watch is meaty and substantial. It feels expensive. And the strap, likewise, you can see here, large rectangular scale, symmetrical scale, alligator leather. That's always a very expensive cut of the animal. That it has a sort of semi-gloss finish, black. We've got a monotone stitch, a sheer cut edge that's been cleaned up with a lovely black lacquering. And then on the bottom, note the use of small round scale alligator leather, something that Vacheron and the best independents are increasingly doing, because with gator on the bottom as well as the top, the strap lasts longer. It costs a few $100s more, but a watch like this is worth it. We've got a double deployant clasp, and you can see the Maltese cross motif, the symbol of the company, is inside the clasp. It's within and without. There you have it right there in its entirety. Here you have a little reference to it. When you close this double folding clasp, you've got another reference to it outside. Looks like we've got a little bit of glue on this. Don't worry, that's just adhesive. And then we have snap shut system. So when closed, it's friction fit. It closes, it stays shut. Now, one feature that is a little bit maybe overkill here is that the buckle, the pin buckle, is fixed to the strap using a screw. Vacheron didn't want to be in a position where if you're using one of the outermost perforations, the strap might pull through. So to absolutely secure the strap inside the buckle, a screw is used. That's something that some brands do for extra security. The lugs are imposing and angular things. You can see they have a sharp downward thrust, and then underneath they have an inward step. And so does the case. You can see that the case steps down towards its back, which makes it look a little bit thinner when it's on the wrist. It also creates some character lines that run horizontally across the case. Everything is in high polish. We have coining of the case back, we have the Maltese cross on the crown, and then we have a little bit of an inward step of the bezel to visually pair the mass of the watch. It does look massive. By creating these little visual wrinkles in the profile, Vacheron designers create the impression of a thinner timepiece. Now on the dial, there's a lot going on, and I do mean a lot. There's a primary sapphire over the dial, then there's a sapphire over the center. It's very shaded and subtle, but you will find that the shaded half of this projection of the northern hemisphere, the shaded half is actually underneath a sapphire that moves. We also have a outboard track for the hours with semicircles representing respectively those areas where it is night in the world and those where it is day. And then we have a clear sapphire over the center that features the names of these 37 locations. So taking a quick look at the handset, you could see that the seconds hand is brushed for contrast. We have a half frosted segment of each of the other two hands. And so that makes for better contrast against this sort of grayscale dial base. And that hand right there, that hour hand, is unique to this model. You can also see, because the dial is large, we have this incredibly long, angular, needle-like hand for the minutes. Now, the watch does feature a couple of setting modes. One activates stop seconds, so you can stop the seconds hand and set everything now. And you can see that, unlike most world time watches, the 24-hour reference ring that shows you the city time, it actually moves counterclockwise like the local hour hand. It just does so at half the speed because it measures 24 hours at a time. Now, the intermediate position allows you to make changes to the reference city down at 6 o'clock. And so that is where you put your reference city. The way you remember where the reference city goes is there's a little triangular index, but also your city of reference is right side up, not upside down. And you can see, as each city slots into place, you'll hear a click, and you'll see a little jump of the minute hand. This minute hand is capable via cams of distinguishing between places that are 1 hour, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes offset from each other, acknowledging that the world is not made up of just 24 time zones. And the reference cities correspond to the internal cams that program how that minute hand is going to jump. Just like that. And so you also have a little notice in the form of color coding. Black, places where winter and summertime are observed. Red, places where they are not. And that changes over time, as do cities of reference. That's one of the great pleasures of studying world time watches from the invention of the system by Louis Cotier in the 1930s to the present. The names of the cities and the cities chosen to represent specific time zones will change. And of course, Caracas in its idiosyncratic time slot. We've got a lot of idiosyncratic time slots here. And you can see that we have little rose gold faceted hour indices outboard, and then the hand's center are made of white gold. So a lot of nuance on this very complex dial. You could see that we have a projection of the northern hemisphere, and that we have raised and relieved land masses with satin finish across their top. That's a brushed grain. And then a media blast to the oceans. And once again, I'll pull the crown out all the way. You'll notice how the shaded side of the projection does change. That shade will move around the dial. Now it's over here. It will follow this darkened semicircle that represents the nighttime hours. And of course, if you're new to world time, the way all this works is you read your local time, your city of reference, on the hands at center, and then you go around the dial. So you can see right here, it is 1 a.m. in London. It is 4 a.m. in Moscow. You could see it is 4 p.m. in Anchorage. That's how that works. That's how you read the world time on the dial. Now, turning it all over, it's a fairly standard Vacheron in-house caliber. We've got a 22-karat mass on ceramic bearings for both richness and efficient winding. And you can see it's been decorated with a guilloche cut pattern. We also have a combination of media blast, beveling, and then snailing on this rotor, which has 4 distinct finishes. The movement, as well as the case featuring the Geneva seal, since 2012, a standard of finish for the entire watch, not just the movement. We do have a stop seconds function, world time. All this pivots on 27 joules. It's adjusted in 5 positions, which is a high horology standard as well as a chronometer standard. And it has a 40-hour power reserve. The quality of the finishing is world class, and all of this is water resistant to 30 meters. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916 company for purchase and pricing details. One last note, some people ask me, Tim, is this gray gold or is it white gold? It is gray gold, which is a white gold 18-karat alloy that is white all the way through and never needs to be rhodium plated. So it's a bit more warm and dark than rhodium plated white gold, but it's also the real deal. The best stuff is used by everyone from Rolex to Grubel Forsey. It never needs to be plated, and if scratched, the same color sits right underneath. Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.